NFC North just became a powder keg ready to explode, and what I'm about to reveal involves the most unlikely alliance in NFL history. A potential roster move that would send shockwaves from Detroit to Green Bay and everywhere in between. And a scenario that seemed absolutely impossible 72 hours ago, but is now being whispered about in front offices across the league. We're talking about a seismic shift that could redefine divisional rivalry, alter the balance of power in the conference, and give the Detroit Lions the kind of veteran leadership and championship pedigree that transforms good teams into dynasty-level organizations. The developments happening right now are moving fast. The implications are staggering, and by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why Lions Nation needs to be paying very close attention to what could be the most controversial and game-changing move of the entire season. Welcome to Lions News Fan Report, your absolute premier destination for breaking Detroit Lions news, exclusive insider analysis, the hottest roster rumors, strategic breakdowns, and the kind of comprehensive football coverage that keeps you ahead of every major development affecting our beloved franchise. I'm here to deliver the real story behind the headlines, the context that mainstream media misses, and the perspective you need to understand where this team is headed during what is shaping up to be our most promising season in decades. Let me establish the landscape of what's currently happening across the NFC North, because understanding the divisional dynamics is absolutely critical to grasping why the situation I'm building toward has such explosive potential. The Detroit Lions are rolling right now, sitting at an impressive 9 wins and 2 losses, playing the most complete football we've seen from this franchise in a generation. Our offense is absolutely lethal, capable of putting up points against any defense in the league. Our defense has shown tremendous improvement and resilience. Dan Campbell has this team believing, playing with an edge and physicality that strikes fear into opponents. We're not just competing anymore, we're dominating. And the entire league is taking notice that Detroit is a legitimate Super Bowl contender this season. But here's where the story gets fascinating. While we've been building our championship-caliber roster through smart drafting, strategic free agency, and developing our young core, there's been turmoil brewing with other organizations in our division. The Green Bay Packers are in transition, moving on from their legendary quarterback era and trying to build around younger talent. The Chicago Bears are experiencing their own growing pains, despite some recent success. And then there's a situation developing that absolutely nobody saw coming, involving one of the most accomplished quarterbacks in NFL history, a player whose name has been synonymous with NFC North football for nearly 2 decades, and whose future is suddenly shrouded in uncertainty and speculation. We're talking about a 4-time MVP, a Super Bowl champion, someone who has terrorized defenses and broken records throughout his career, and a player whose legacy in this division is undeniable, regardless of how you feel about him personally. This quarterback has been the face of a franchise for years, has delivered countless memorable moments, and represents the kind of veteran presence and football IQ that championship teams covet. But circumstances change rapidly. In the NFL, injuries alter trajectory, and organizational relationships can deteriorate faster than anyone expects. What seemed like a stable situation just weeks ago has suddenly become fluid, and the possibility of this legendary quarterback wearing different colors is no longer the fantasy it once seemed. According to multiple reports from credible NFL insiders, this quarterback recently suffered a significant injury that has cast serious doubt on his immediate playing future. We're talking about a wrist fracture that required medical evaluation and has his availability listed as questionable at best for upcoming games. Now, injuries happen to every player, but when you're dealing with a veteran who has already accomplished everything there is to accomplish in this league, when the team he's currently with is struggling to compete for championships, and when there are whispers of organizational dysfunction and disconnect, suddenly an injury becomes more than just a temporary setback. It becomes a potential inflection point where both player and organization reassess whether continuing together makes strategic sense. Here's where Lions Nation needs to lock in completely, because what I'm about to share will challenge everything you thought you knew about roster construction, divisional loyalty, and what moves are actually possible in today's NFL. There is legitimate buzz circulating among league insiders, people who understand how front offices operate and how blockbuster moves materialize. that Aaron Rodgers could potentially be available for trade, and the Detroit Lions are being mentioned as a franchise that might have interest in bringing the future Hall of Famer to Motor City. I know what you're thinking. I know the immediate reaction is disbelief, maybe even disgust at the idea of the Packers' legendary quarterback wearing Honolulu blue. But hear me out. Because when you analyze this from a pure football perspective, divorced from the emotional baggage and rivalry history, there's actually a compelling case to be made. Let me be crystal clear about something before we go any further. Jared Goff has been absolutely phenomenal for us this season. He's playing at an MVP level, making all the throws, leading this offense with confidence and precision, and has completely silenced any doubters who question whether he could be the quarterback of a championship team. This is not about replacing Goff or suggesting he's not good enough. This is about exploring whether adding a veteran presence like Rodgers in a specific capacity, whether as a mentor, a backup who can contribute in certain packages, or insurance against injury, could provide value to our championship pursuit. Championship organizations explore every avenue to improve, and if there's even a possibility that Aaron Rodgers becomes available at a reasonable cost, the front office has an obligation to at least evaluate it. Now, let's talk about the actual football implications of what adding Rodgers could mean. Setting aside the rivalry emotions for a moment, we're talking about one of the most intelligent quarterbacks to ever play the game. Someone whose understanding of defensive schemes and ability to diagnose coverages pre-snap is virtually unmatched. His arm talent remains elite even at his age. He can make every throw required in a modern NFL offense. And his experience in high-pressure playoff situations is invaluable. Imagine having that kind of football IQ in the quarterback room, working with Goff, sharing insights about defenses we'll face in the playoffs, and providing the kind of veteran leadership that young offensive players can learn from. The value wouldn't necessarily be on-field production, though he could certainly contribute if needed, but rather the intangible benefits of having a four-time MVP in your building during a championship run. The injury situation with Rodgers is obviously a significant factor that has to be considered carefully. A wrist fracture is not something to take lightly, especially for a quarterback whose ability to grip and throw the football is essential to his effectiveness. The reports indicate his status is 50-50 for upcoming games, which suggests this is a legitimate injury that will require time to heal properly. For his current team, this creates uncertainty about their immediate playoff hopes and forces them to evaluate whether their championship window is still open or if they need to consider alternative paths forward. For potential suitors like the Lions, it means any trade discussion would have to include thorough medical evaluations, clarity on recovery timeline, and realistic expectations about when he could contribute if acquired. Here's the strategic angle that makes this situation so intriguing for Detroit. We're built to win right now, with a roster that's firing on all cylinders and a coaching staff that has this team playing at an elite level. Our Super Bowl window is wide open this season, and we have the pieces in place to make a legitimate run. But the NFL playoffs are unpredictable, and having depth at the most important position on the field is never a bad thing. If Rodgers becomes available at a cost that doesn't compromise our core or mortgage our future, if the medical evaluations indicate he can recover fully, and if there's alignment on his role within the organization, then exploring the possibility makes strategic sense even if it feels uncomfortable from a rivalry perspective. The reaction from Lions fans to even the suggestion of Aaron Rodgers in Detroit has been predictably mixed and passionate. Some view it as an absolute betrayal of everything our rivalry stands for, an unforgivable move that would tarnish the purity of what we're building. Others see it as the ultimate power move, taking the Packers' legendary quarterback and using him to help deliver Detroit its first Super Bowl championship. The debate raging on social media has been intense, with valid arguments on both sides about whether this would be brilliant strategy or organizational insanity. What I will say is this: championship organizations make decisions based on what gives them the best chance to win, not on what makes fans comfortable or preserves rivalry narratives. If Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell believe Aaron Rodgers can help us win a Super Bowl, then personal feelings about his history with Green Bay become secondary to the ultimate goal. The practical challenges of actually making this happen cannot be understated. Rodgers has a massive contract that would require creative maneuvering to fit under our salary cap. His current team would need to be willing to trade him, which is far from guaranteed even with the injury situation. And there would have to be mutual interest from Rodgers himself in coming to Detroit, accepting whatever role the organization envisions for him, and buying into the culture that Campbell has built. These are significant obstacles that make any potential deal complicated at best and unlikely at worst. But the fact that the conversation is even happening, that insiders are mentioning the Lions as a potential destination, tells you that there's at least some substance to the speculation beyond pure fantasy. From a pure entertainment and storyline perspective, Aaron Rodgers joining the Lions will be one of the most shocking and compelling narratives in recent NFL history. The longtime Packers quarterback, the player who has owned the Bears and tormented the entire division for years, suddenly wearing Honolulu blue and helping Detroit pursue a championship. The media coverage would be absolutely insane. The storylines would write themselves, and the intensity of divisional games would reach levels we've never seen before. Love him or hate him, Rodgers is box office, and having him in our building would generate attention and energy that few players in the league can match. Lions Nation, I need to hear directly from you on this because the fan base is clearly divided. Would you support the organization if they decided to trade for Aaron Rodgers? Do you believe his football IQ and championship experience would be valuable even in a limited role? Or do you think the rivalry history makes this an absolute non-starter regardless of the potential football benefits? Are you concerned about the injury, the contract implications, or the potential locker room dynamics? Drop your honest thoughts in the comments right now, because this is exactly the kind of controversial topic where I want to know how our fan base really feels about pushing boundaries to win a championship. If you want to stay completely plugged into every development with this Aaron Rodgers situation, every trade rumor, every roster move, and every strategic decision that could impact our Super Bowl pursuit, you absolutely need to subscribe to Lions News Fan Report right now and smash that notification bell. This is your home for daily Lions content, insider analysis, and the kind of coverage that keeps you informed about everything happening with our franchise. Share this video with every Lions fan you know. Hit that like button if you found this analysis thought-provoking, and keep coming back for more exclusive updates. One pride, Lions Nation. Let's go win a championship.